I've been with Lisa for about 5 years now. When we first got together, it was pretty great. She was smart, hot, funny, and we clicked instantly. But I started noticing things over the last year that didn't sit right. Small stuff at first. She'd be distracted more often, cancel plans last minute, or get weirdly defensive when I asked where she'd been or who she was texting. I figured she was just busy or maybe bored, but then I caught her lying about little things, and it started to feel off. Things got worse when I noticed she was spending a lot of time on her laptop late at night. She'd excuse herself to work on her project or catch up on emails, but her screen time was longer than a typical work session. She'd get snippy if I asked her about it, pushing me away or saying I was paranoid. I didn't push too hard, probably should have, but I was trying to trust her. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on. She'd get all bitchy when I'd bring up her late-night sessions, and her attitude was just different. Cold, dismissive. I'd never seen her like this before. Then, last week, I decided to do some digging. I've always been a little suspicious about her latest project, especially since she was disappearing for hours, wearing those weird VR goggles she bought for her work with her holographic tech. She's obsessed with this new experimental projection room tech. She's always talked about it like it's her big breakthrough. But I noticed her acting secretive about it, hiding her phone when she was on a call or muttering to herself when she thought I wasn't looking. So I decided to peek. I was in the living room just chilling when she left her phone unattended on the table. I saw a notification pop up, a message from someone named Alex. I didn't recognize the name, but the message wasn't even about work. It was flirty, a little suggestive, talking about seeing each other again soon and can't wait to be alone with you. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My wife, Lisa, was cheating on me, and she was doing it through some kind of virtual tech, I guess. It clicked then. The weird late nights, the secretive attitude, the way she was so obsessed with her holograms and projection rooms. She'd been sneaking around in some virtual world having sex with this guy. I didn't want to believe it at first. I thought maybe it was just a joke or some kind of prank, but I checked her messages and there was more. She had been coordinating with this Alex guy for weeks, meeting him in some kind of virtual space where they could have digital sex. She told me it was just experimental, but the way she talked, the things she said, it was very clear she was cheating. I felt numb, pissed, betrayed. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I also needed to think. How the hell do you confront your wife about cheating with some guy in a projection room? What do I say? How do I even begin? I sat there staring at her phone, trying to process what I just read. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, was lying to my face and doing things with another guy that I couldn't even describe. She's always been a bit of a bitch about things, demanding, dismissive, and her lies just made it worse. I kept thinking, how could she do this to me? How could she betray me like this? And the worst part, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with it. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Not anymore. So, after I found out about Alex and the virtual affair, I didn't sleep that night. My mind was racing. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew that wasn't smart. I needed to plan, think about what I was going to say and do. I also couldn't stop replaying her words, her lies, the way she dismissed me every time I brought up her actions. She's always been a bit of a nightmare, bitchy, dismissive, sarcastic, and she's got a talent for twisting things around. I knew she'd deny everything, even with proof right in front of her, so I had to be smart. The next morning, I decided to play it cool. I waited until she was in the kitchen, pouring herself her usual coffee. I sat down, took a deep breath, and started casually. I asked her about the project she'd been obsessing over, about her holographic tech, about her late nights. She looked at me with that icy stare like I was bothering her. Then she shrugged, smirked, and threw out some bullshit about how I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her work, and that I was paranoid. Classic Lisa, always quick with the lies, always dismissing my feelings. That's when I knew I needed to get more concrete evidence. I waited a few hours, then I sneaked into her office when she was out. I didn't want to do anything invasive, Just wanted to see if she'd leave her phone lying around again. Sure enough, I found her device hidden behind some holographic project controls. I grabbed it, quickly unlocked it, and scrolled through her messages. It was worse than I imagined. There were dozens of texts, pictures, even video snippets. She'd been sending him videos of herself, apparently during their virtual sex sessions. I saw her talking dirty, describing their encounters, saying how hot he looked in the projection room. I felt like I was punched in the gut. I couldn't believe she'd been that bold, that reckless. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. I'd always thought she was just busy or distracted, but now I saw she'd been deceiving me all along. That bitch had been cheating on me for weeks and I hadn't even suspected. I was furious at how easily she lied, how she manipulated everything. But I was also hurt. Deep down, I still loved her, and this betrayal cut so deep I didn't know if I could come back from it. I looked at her messages one last time, then I deleted most of the evidence. I didn't want her to find out I'd been snooping, not yet. I needed a plan. Later that day, I confronted her. I was pissed but tried to keep my voice steady. "Lisa, I know what you've been doing," I told her. She froze, her face twisting into that typical bitchy sneer. She denied everything at first, gave me the usual bullshit about how I was paranoid or jealous. She started lying faster than I could keep up, throwing out accusations about me being insecure, about how I don't understand her work or her needs. She told me it was just experimental, just some kind of weird creative outlet. But I played her recordings in my head and I knew better. I told her I saw the messages, the videos, the proof. Her face changed. She looked surprised at first, then angry, then defensive. She started to get bitchy, raising her voice, calling me crazy, saying I was stalking her. "You're just jealous," she spat. "You don't understand what I do. You're insecure and this is all your fault." I felt my blood boiling. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she justify cheating with some guy in a virtual room like it was nothing? I told her I was done taking her bullshit. I said she'd crossed a line, and I was sick of her dismissing what we had like it was nothing. She stormed out of the room, calling me a psycho, accusing me of invading her privacy, trying to make me feel like it was all in my head. But I knew what I saw, and I couldn't unsee it. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling hurt, betrayed, and more angry than I'd ever been. I'd always been a guy who believed in loyalty, honesty, the kind of guy who would do anything for his wife. But now, I didn't recognize the woman. I married. She was a stranger, and she'd done something unforgivable. I kept thinking about the virtual sex, about her lying and sneering at me like I was a joke. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. All I knew was that my trust was gone, and I'd never look at her the same way again. The days that followed were like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I tried to think straight, her face would pop up in my mind. Her bitchy smirk, her dismissive sneer, the way she lied to my face so effortlessly. Honestly, I felt sick. I was angry, yes, but mostly I felt hurt, like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. I kept replaying that night's confrontation, wondering if I'd done the right thing, if I'd attacked her too hard or maybe not enough. But deep down, I knew I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. Not anymore. She, Lisa, started acting even more distant after I confronted her. She'd go into her office for hours, pretending to work, but I could see her sneaking her phone out of her pocket when she thought. I wasn't looking. She'd get defensive if I asked questions, and her bitchy attitude only got worse. She snapped at me whenever I got too close or tried to talk about what I knew. That's when I realized that her arrogance and her need to control everything had gone into overdrive. She thought she was untouchable, that I wouldn't dare do anything to her because I loved her. That pissed me off even more. I decided I had to get more evidence, more concrete proof of her betrayal, before making any final decisions. So I set up my own little sting. I installed a hidden recorder in the living room just to see if she'd slip up again or say something incriminating. I didn't do it out of paranoia alone. I just wanted to be sure. And sure enough, a couple of days later I caught her in the act. I'd gone to the garage to grab some tools, and that's when I heard her on her phone, talking to someone I didn't recognize. Her voice was clipped, commanding, speaking about meeting up again in the projection room and taking things to the next level. That was the moment I snapped. I finally felt like I'd caught her in the act, not just in her lies. It was all real. The virtual sex, the secret meetings, the fake work she kept hiding behind. She'd been lying to my face this whole time, and I'd given her the benefit of the doubt for too long. I knew I needed to do something drastic. I had to confront her again, but this time with everything laid bare. I waited until she was back in the house, and I told her I knew everything. I played the recordings, showed her the messages. Her reaction, pure bitchiness. She started yelling, calling me crazy, saying I was stalking her again, that I was making it all up. She said she was just exploring her boundaries, that I was insecure and jealous. I could feel the rage building up inside me. That was the last straw. I told her I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulations, her virtual affairs, her dismissive attitude. I told her she was done, that I was done. That I wasn't going to stay with someone who thought it was okay to cheat in some digital fantasy world while pretending to be faithful in real life. She kept denying, calling me a psycho, saying I was trying to ruin her career, her reputation. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was just done. I packed a bag and told her I needed space. She sneered at me, threw her typical accusations, and told me I was overreacting. Honestly, I didn't even care anymore. I just wanted out of that toxic mess. That night was a blur. I sat alone in my apartment, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The betrayal hit me harder than I expected. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, thought that was the foundation of a relationship, but she had shattered that in a matter of weeks. I realized how much I'd let myself be walked all over, how I'd ignored the warning signs, how I'd trusted her even when she didn't deserve it. Now, I was faced with a choice: try to fix this or walk away for good. The thought of her lying through her teeth, playing her games in some virtual projection room, just made me sick to my stomach. I knew I couldn't stay. I had to get out before she dragged me further into her web of lies. After I left her that night, I felt a strange mix of relief and deep sadness. Part of me was glad to get away from her manipulative attitude, her bitchy snipes, and her constant lying. But another part, the biggest part, was devastated. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. The woman I married, the woman I trusted, had turned into someone I barely recognized. The betrayal was so complete, so gut-wrenching, that I couldn't sleep for days. All I kept thinking about was the virtual sex, her sneering at me when I asked questions, and how she had lied right to my face. I decided I couldn't just walk away without doing something about it. I needed revenge, something to make her realize she couldn't get away with this. Honestly, I wasn't just angry. I was hurt, humiliated, and furious. I spent what felt like an eternity thinking about ways to make her pay for what she'd done. I didn't want to just divorce her. I wanted her to feel the same level of betrayal I felt. I wanted her to understand how much she destroyed us and how much I was hurting inside. So I started planning my move. I knew she was obsessed with her holographic projection tech, her virtual rooms, and her experiments. That was her escape, her playground, her secret affair spot. I figured if I could mess with her virtual space, she'd finally get a taste of her own medicine. I contacted a guy I knew who was into hacking and digital sabotage. I told him what I wanted, just enough to disrupt her virtual sessions, make her lose access, and maybe even cause her some embarrassment. I didn't want to ruin her completely, just enough to show her I was serious. Meanwhile, I kept my distance from her for a few days, watching her try to act normal, all bitchy and dismissive, pretending everything was fine. But I knew better. I knew she was panicking inside. I wasn't stupid. I'd seen her messages, her sneaky behavior, how she was trying to cover her tracks. I was just waiting for the right moment to strike. Finally, I got the chance. I managed to inject some malware into her holographic projection system. Nothing too destructive, just enough to cause glitches, freeze-ups, and temporary shutdowns. I also sent some fake messages from her lover, Alex, saying that he was tired of her lies and wanted to end everything. I knew she'd see the messages when she tried to log in, and I wanted her to feel the chaos I'd been feeling every day since I found out. I watched her freak out when her system shut down unexpectedly, her trying to restart it, cursing at the screen. That bitch was used to control, and I took that away from her. The next morning, she lost it. She was furious, screaming at the system, accusing it of malfunctioning. She started blaming her tech team, calling them idiots, demanding answers. I stayed quiet, watching her spin out of control. It was satisfying, but it didn't bring me happiness, just more anger and disappointment. I knew I had to keep going. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without her knowing the full extent of what she'd lost. Over the next few days, I kept messing with her virtual world, planting little seeds of chaos. I made her system crash at crucial moments during her sessions. I even managed to send her some fake messages from her lover, making her panic and accuse him of cheating on her. She was spiraling, and I felt a strange sense of power. It was cold, I know, but after everything she'd done, I didn't see another way. She needed to understand what betrayal felt like. She needed to see the fallout of her actions. It was then I realized something. I wasn't just doing this for revenge. Deep down, a part of me wanted her to see the damage she caused, to understand how much she'd hurt me. I wanted her to be hurt just as I was. That's the thing about betrayal. Once it happens, everything turns into war. And I wasn't going to let her forget it. I was determined to make her regret ever crossing me, even if it meant losing whatever shred of respect I still had for myself. I had to make her feel the pain she'd inflicted, in a way she couldn't deny. The chaos I unleashed in her virtual world didn't stop with just system crashes and fake messages. I wanted her to truly understand what she'd lost, what she'd thrown away. So, I started planting little surprises in her holographic sessions, glitches that corrupted her visuals, distorted her voice, and made the virtual space look like a digital hellscape. Watching her panic as her perfect projections turned into chaos was strangely cathartic. She'd scream at her system, call it useless, throw her bitchy fits, but I knew she was also terrified. She knew I'd found a way to fight back, and she couldn't stop it. One day, I managed to sneak a message into her holographic world, one that only she could see. It was a simple line. "You thought you could cheat and manipulate your way out of this, Lisa, but I see now. The virtual world is just a reflection of who you really are: dishonest, manipulative, unfaithful." I knew it would hit her like a ton of bricks. She always loved being in control, loved dismissing my concerns, but now she was trapped in her own digital hell, forced to face the consequences. Her reaction? Absolutely bitchy. She started yelling at her computer, accusing it of sabotaging her work. She called her tech support, demanding answers, acting like a spoiled brat. I stayed hidden, watching her blow up. I realized then she was completely losing it. Her bitchy mask was cracking, and she was desperate. I'd pushed her into a corner, and she was lashing out in all directions. I felt a mix of satisfaction and guilt. Satisfaction because I was finally fighting back, and guilt because I knew I was crossing some lines. But honestly, after everything she'd done, lying, sneaking around, virtual sex, she didn't deserve my sympathy anymore. In the midst of all this chaos, I also started collecting evidence for myself: screenshots, recordings, her messages with Alex that I'd hidden. I wanted to be able to prove beyond doubt what she'd been doing, not just to her, but to myself. I needed to see it all laid out, clear as day, so I could decide my next move. I wasn't planning to stay with her, not anymore. Every day she spent trying to fix her system, yelling at her techs, and playing games in her virtual world only confirmed what I already knew. She was lost to her own lies, and I was better off without her. But the thing that finally broke me was when I saw her break down on a video call with her tech support, furious because her system kept crashing. Her virtual projections were unresponsive, and everything was spiraling out of control. She was throwing a tantrum, bitching and cursing, demanding they fix it immediately. Watching her like that, helpless and furious, I finally understood. I had taken away her control, her escape, her perfect virtual playground, and she hated it completely. That realization made me feel a strange mix of anger and relief. I had made her vulnerable. I had made her see that she couldn't manipulate her way out of this. That's when I decided I was done playing games. I had enough proof, enough chaos. It was time for the final step, her to see the truth, and for me to finally walk away. After everything I did, disrupting her virtual space, sending her fake messages, planting chaos in her holographic projections, I thought I'd feel some kind of relief. But honestly, I just felt exhausted. All that planning, all that anger, it had taken a toll. Still, I knew I couldn't keep going like this. She had turned into someone I didn't recognize, someone who cared only about her digital illusions and her own selfish needs. I saw her unraveling in real time, her bitchy attitude cracking, replaced by genuine frustration and panic. The woman I once loved was gone, replaced by someone who only cared about herself. One day I sat her down and told her I'd seen everything. I explained how I'd found the messages, how I'd hacked her system, how I'd been messing with her virtual world. I told her I was done with her lies, her manipulations, her virtual affairs. I said I couldn't stay with someone who had no respect for me or what we had. I looked her in the eye and told her everything I knew. She sneered at first, tried to deny it again, but I had the proof, screenshots, recordings, every ugly detail. Her face twisted in anger and disdain, but there was also something else, fear. Real fear, because she knew I wasn't bluffing anymore. She went silent for a long moment, then finally spat out, "You're crazy. You don't understand anything. This is just your insecurities talking." But I didn't buy her bullshit anymore. I told her I was leaving, and I meant it. I packed my things and walked out that door, leaving her standing there, furious and defeated. As I closed the door behind me, I realized that I'd just freed myself from a toxic, manipulative relationship. I'd been betrayed, in the worst way possible, by a woman I thought I knew who turned out to be someone I couldn't trust. Now looking back, I see it all clearly. The betrayal, the lies, her bitchy attitude, none of it was worth sacrificing my happiness or my sanity. I learned that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, even if it means making enemies of the person you once loved. That's the thing about betrayal. Once trust is broken, it can never truly be repaired. And even though I still feel the sting of what she did, I know I made the right choice. I've started to rebuild my life piece by piece, and I refuse to let her virtual lies define me. What I want to say to anyone reading this is this: never ignore the signs. Never let someone manipulate you into thinking it's just work or experimental when it feels wrong. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to confront the truth, even if it hurts. Because in the end, you deserve honesty, loyalty, and real love, none of which I got from her. And sometimes the only way to move on is to cut out the poison altogether.